Welcome to another episode of Board's Eye Leadership Talks. Today, we're excited to have a special guest who embodies the spirit of entrepreneurship and influence, Matt Brown. Matt is a globally recognized podcaster, speaker, and 3-time Amazon best-selling author. He brings to a table over 25 years of rich experience as a veteran entrepreneur, having founded 14 startups with multiple successful exits. His journey is not just about creating businesses, it's about innovating and leading in the entrepreneurial world. At the core of Matt's success is his ability to work with business leaders and transform them into influential figures in their industries through his company, ShowWorks Media. Matt provides scalable influence systems, empowering leaders to shape perceptions, inspire actions, and drive impactful decision-making. Matt's expertise is further exemplified in his role as the host of The Matt Brown Show, a renowned global business podcast. Here, he has engaged in deep, insightful conversations with over 800 extraordinary guests, ranging from billionaires across 6 continents, New York best-selling authors, Navy SEALs, and global business thought leaders. These discussions have not only built a global following for his podcast, but have also equipped Matt with unparalleled insights into the world of business and influence. In addition to his podcast, Matt is the author of the #1 bestseller book, Secrets of Influence. This book is a culmination of experiences and learning, providing valuable tools and frameworks for anyone looking to elevate their influence in the business world. Today, we will talk about Matt's journey, exploring the highs and lows of his entrepreneurial ventures, and uncover the secrets behind becoming a successful business influencer. We'll also discuss his book, Secrets of Influence, and extract key lessons that our listeners can apply in their own leadership journeys. So join us as we dive into the conversation with Matt Brown and discover what it truly takes to be a leader and influencer in today's fast-paced business world. Matt Brown, welcome.
Martin, it's great to be here, buddy.
It's great having you here. I'm excited to have this the other way around. Since we originally met, you brought me onto your show, The Matt Brown Show.
Yeah, that's right. I think you've been on the show twice.
Yep.
Last time was Secrets of Fail. It was a series we were doing around the importance of failure in becoming successful as a business leader.
Yeah, that was a good one. I like it. So, Matt, could you share with us the most significant turning point in your entrepreneurial journey that led you to where you are today?
It's a great question. It actually is the Matt Brown Show. So when I started it about 10 years ago, I really sucked at it. I'm an introvert.
So I shouldn't feel bad if I'm sucking right now.
No. If you suck at something, it actually is an indicator of future success.
Awesome.
But, so I mean, I started it. I literally was going to do 3 episodes. That was it. I was launching a product called Digital Kung Fu. It was going to be a training site for small businesses to help them, equip them with marketing and advertising skills. And then I did 3, and I used to script everything right down to the, like, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. I had everything planned out because I didn't want to make a mistake. And so as I started to get past episode number 3, and I got to episode 50, and then I got to episode 100, I suddenly was being referred to, the biggest business brands or leaders rather on the African continent. And then I had a media deal with Entrepreneur Magazine. Digital Kung Fu then became the business that I then scaled. Scaled that up to about 55 people in about 3 years. And it was all through the show. I had dozens of sold out shows. I was the most famous I'd ever been in a relatively short period of time. And now the show is in the top 2.5% of all podcasts that exist globally. We reach, I think, it's an audience in 100 countries around the world. I've written 3 books off the show. I've got an incredible network. And to answer your question very succinctly, none of it would have happened if I hadn't made that decision to just start a podcast.
Yeah. And speaking of that, what inspired you to start the Matt Brown Show?
Well, it was actually called the Digital Kung Fu Show in the beginning, but what inspired me was just to make a difference, and I think the why behind that show hasn't changed. It was all about making a positive difference to business leaders and entrepreneurs around the world through information sharing at scale, which, by the way, is the definition of influence. So if you ask 10 CEOs, or I do, ask 10,
800.
800, what is influence? I'll get 10 different answers. And so there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But where people typically go is they go, oh, no, it's influencer marketing. I mean, it's like, no, influence is a much, much bigger idea than just influencer marketing and how many followers you have. Influence, is the currency of future business leadership. And influence is really about not elevating oneself, which is influencer marketing. Influence is about elevating others. And if you think about Nelson Mandela, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, and all these other amazing business leaders and what they did to the world, like Nelson Mandela being South African, locked up in prison for 32 years. I'm from South Africa, and he made the choice to influence in a positive way. Because he didn't have to. He could have been really pissed off with, the guys that put him in prison and stuff, the government at the time. But he chose to, bring South Africa together. And if he didn't make that choice, South Africa would be a war zone. There'd be a civil war. It would be a terrible, terrible place to go. But it's not like that today, because he made the choice to positively uplift South Africa as a community. Elon Musk, what he's doing with SpaceX and Tesla and pretty much every other thing that he's doing, it's about elevating humanity. Oprah Winfrey built $1 billion media company, Harpo, by literally elevating others up through her platform. And so everywhere you look, if you want to really leave your markets and your customers and the communities and the audiences that you care about, even the Matt Brown Show, it's all about elevating them up in ways that are novel and unique.
I love that. Yeah. And I truly believe that as well. So makes sense why it worked out for you. Before I jump into the secrets of influence, and it would be perfect timing because you started talking about it, but I am curious because I know that you built a really big network. Even though you were doing, while in Africa, you were doing shows and you were interviewing people internationally, me included, but you made a big step from moving away from your network, and you are here in the US now. You moved here. And what drove that decision, and how are you rebuilding your network?
Yeah, it's a great question. What drove that decision was opportunity. I actually believe in the American dream, and I know you do too. And I know your story with your family, coming over from Poland and so forth. So you understand, and I understand very much what it means to pursue the American dream, because you think about emerging markets and things like that. I mean, let me be very honest. Building a business in Africa is probably the hardest place in the world to build a business. There are so many challenges that, entrepreneurs and CEOs in developed markets like the US, they don't even know that exist. I can get into that if you want, but I don't need to. I think the short answer to your question is, it was really about the American dream. And I lived in the States about 15 years ago. And I'd done a lot of business in the States. And I just always loved the idea of that. And so when I had the opportunity to go, it was just like, well, let's go for it, And then the second part of your question around rebuilding my network. Well, I actually, as you know, lost all my network when I arrived in the US. But I did have the show. And so to rebuild my network, I used my show to do that. And it started with an email, weirdly enough. There's actually still value in email today, guys. But I sent an email to 1,000 founders and CEOs of startups in California only who had raised $1 million or more in the preceding 12 months. And I sent a very short, simple email going, "Hi, my name's Matt. I host a popular business show called The Matt Brown Show. I'd love the chance to interview you. The show's featured New York Times bestselling authors, Navy SEALs, blah, 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 Steve Blank, Jeffrey Moore, some of the big thinkers in the startup space. And I'd love to give you some free PR exposure. Here's the link to book your interview." Thanks so much, Matt. And I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, and I couldn't believe what I saw. There were 190 booked interviews, and then I stood back, and I was concerned with the amount of time I'd now need to spend. I wasn't expecting that kind of a response. But the question that I was immediately asking myself was, well, what is this? Why did it work? How was I able to make 190 connections on an single email, and combining that with a show? And that's when I cottoned on to this whole idea of influence. That's actually what influence is. Like, how did I inspire action at that kind of level of scale in a matter of seconds with my cost being practically zero? And that's when I was like, wow, this is an incredible thing. And so that's how I've really started to rebuild my network. And obviously now, I think just this year, we've done probably more shows than any other year previously, because I believe what you believe too, Martin, which is your network is your net worth. But I'm doing it in a way that's really different and unique, and it's resonating with a lot of CEOs in the US.
Awesome. And I did know that you did that through email, because you talk about it in the book. Yeah. So if someone's looking for the details of the email and the story, get the book. So speaking of your book, in your book, Secrets of Influence, what are the key strategies you emphasize for individuals aspiring to become influential leaders?
Yeah. So it's a great...
Without giving away the book. We still want them to buy it.
It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I think the thing for me that's a really big idea that people, CEOs especially, the guys at the heads of these companies, is that it's this idea of influence systems. So if you're running a company that's doing $10 million or more a year, and you want to then get to $20 million, you don't just get there. Because if that were true, we'd all have these massive businesses and we'd all be wildly successful, wouldn't we? But we don't. And why don't we just, reach our aspirations? It's because we always gravitate down to the strength of our systems. And, that idea is not mine. It's one that's been around before. But in the context of influence, it's also true. So if you think about what is an influence system, well, it starts with what I call a media platform. So you have to have something, a vision, an idea that you want to be known for. So whether that's the Matt Brown Show, the home of the extraordinary, or, Martin Rowinski, Board's Eye, and what you're trying to do with boards and leaders and things like, you need to have something that you personally, not your business brand, but you personally are going to be famous for. And maybe people are like, well, I don't want to be famous. Well, if you don't want to be famous, it's not about having loads of followers. It's not necessarily about being famous, but it's about having an idea out there that the world and you care about, and then building components of your system around that idea over time. So as an example, a best-selling book, right? I meet so many CEOs and they say, Matt, I've got 4 books in me. I just don't have time for one. Right? So a book is an idea. It's a component of a system. Yep. Then if you think about a podcast, right, or a media platform, it's such a powerful thing. Like what you're doing with Board's Eye and what I've been doing with my show, it is such a powerful way to generate mutually beneficial relationships, grow networks, open up sales opportunities. I mean, I'm using my show now as a lead generation tool. So I can get into any CEO's boardroom, if you like, or I can meet with any CEO just because of the story and the value around my show. Content, thought leadership platforms. In my book, I share a number of frameworks like the H3 content model, which is a powerful way for a business leader to understand how to express their value to the world. Because I find that it's less about what people need to say. You and I know what we need to say, and many of your audience do too, but they battle with how to say it. And so when you think about how you add the thought leadership platform, the podcast, maybe it's a YouTube channel, a best-selling book, maybe it's 300 digital assets, and you start to bring that all together, plus podcast tours, all this kind of stuff. Over time, if you look at a year and you think about a quarter running 4 quarters every year, that you bite off a component every quarter on a new component of your system. And then at the end of the year, if someone Googles Martin Rowinski